His closest allies, Turkey. A lot of the stuff that involves Michael Flynn, two things. One was his trip where he went overseas and spoke at an event that was sponsored by Russia Today, which is the official state-sponsored media of the Russian government. He sat next to Russian President Vladimir Putin. That was something he never disclosed. That was a paid appearance. He never disclosed that to the military, which is, I understand, something he was required to do. So there is that legal implication. Secondly, was the fact that we understand he was working on behalf of the Turkish, and I should be very careful here because they are not using the word government, but a Turkish business association here in the United States that has very close links to the Turkish government. And the Turkish government was using this not directly as a lobbying arm, but using this business association to try to set up business meetings with American businesses and what have you. And Michael Flynn was somebody who was in contact with that association, had meetings with them. And so there are now these questions as to whether or not he was indirectly lobbying for the Turkish government here in the United States without declaring it. As we saw last week with the indictment involving Paul Manafort, that was something that Bob Mueller went after because of the FAR, the Foreign Agent Registration.
For those who don't know and don't know the story about Fethullah Gulen, very briefly, why would Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, want this guy who lives in Pennsylvania, the Poconos, extradited?
This is an Islamic cleric that the Turkish government accuses of being the mastermind of a coup, that he's trying to sow dissent in the country, and that he is working through his network of schools and charities around the Muslim world to raise funds. And they've labeled him as such, as a terrorist organization. The United States is not convinced by that argument. They've been reluctant to turn him over. They're saying it has to go through a due process. But again, as we learned, Michael Flynn made the argument that this Islamic cleric, Fethullah Gulen, should be handed over to the Turkish government, and that was something the Turks wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to the other big breaking news. We have a ton to talk about this morning. These arrests of 11 princes in Saudi Arabia. What is going on here? I mean, I think people who didn't know that Fox News was partly one of the big investors in Fox News is this prince who was arrested, Al-Wadi. What is going on here?
I think you have to take a 10,000-foot approach and look at this in the context of the past 2 years. You had a young deputy crown prince emerge on the scene in Saudi Arabia, and since then he has, by many people's accounts in and outside of the kingdom, tried to consolidate power. What we saw yesterday was perhaps the biggest attempt of him to consolidate power very quickly. Now, he's doing so under the guise of fighting corruption, and that is something that is very rampant in his country. Corruption at the highest levels of the Saudi government as a result of people that are princes and royals and connected to the government. But he's doing this at the same time that some are saying, well, this seems to be a bit suspicious because there are people that he's gone after that he is accusing, or at least others are accusing, of sowing dissent within the kingdom and trying to destabilize the kingdom. And the issue of succession is such an important issue in understanding Saudi Arabia. This is a young crown prince now. His father is the king, and he moved him up the ranks very quickly, overpassing a lot of younger Saudi royals, and I think that has angered a lot. So what we saw yesterday was his attempt to consolidate power by removing the head of the National Guard and bringing all of the security forces under his control, and at the same time going after very prominent, well-known Western billionaire businessmen and other princesses under the guise of, like, we're fighting corruption. Now what that does really quickly is it actually builds a lot of support in Saudi Arabia, because these are seen as popular moves, fighting corruption, and what he's doing on the side. You know, the recent ban to let women drive has been lifted. Women will be allowed to go to sports events. Concerts are going to be allowed in Saudi Arabia. Movie theaters are opening up. So young Saudis who are watching this crown prince, they're excited about some of the things that he's doing. Others are somewhat skeptical, thinking he's consolidating too much power and doing it very quickly. There's also the disastrous war in Yemen that he is leading that has drawn a lot of criticism for his conduct of that war in Saudi Arabia.
And so this is a 32-year-old guy. He's Jared Kushner's age. Apparently he has a good relationship with Trump and with Jared Kushner as well. Is it too conspiratorial if Americans look at this set of circumstances, these three data points? Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who is friendly with this news band of Saudi royals, just was there. Then you have these arrests that include a prominent critic of Donald Trump, somebody who's been sparring with him on Twitter, and now you have Donald Trump out there touting that he wants to see Saudi Aramco, which is a state-owned oil company, list itself, a huge deal, and he wants to see it listed in the United States. Are these three things completely separate, or are we seeing the Saudis go after basically a Donald Trump enemy and curry favor with the American president?
I don't think that they are separate. I don't know if it's necessarily as direct as, like, we're going after an enemy of President Donald Trump, and so we're going to do that. I don't think it is at that level. What I do think it is, though, is that you have a young Saudi leadership that is emerging on the scene, and they realize that they have a lot of interest with the United States. As you just mentioned, one of them is the potential listing of Aramco, the world's largest oil company, on the New York Stock Exchange, which would in itself bring billions of dollars dollars into the United States, but also the fact that you have a young Saudi leadership that is trying to modernize his country. The United States is going to benefit from that economically. They want to see a modern, liberal, economically and socially open Saudi Arabia. They're going to benefit from that. So I think there's a convergence of interests, not necessarily values, but of interests. And they also know, as we've seen, they threw out the red carpet for President Trump when he came to Saudi Arabia. They know what language he speaks. And so that's why they're speaking that language of economic interest.
Money.
And it's kind of like, you do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Yeah, deals and money. I wish we had more time because there's so much I can talk to you about. We didn't even get into
what Iran must be thinking about.
Unbelievable. Absolutely. So we'll definitely have you back. Ayman Mohyeldin, do not miss him tonight on his very new show. Give us the name of the show. Let's promote it a little bit.
We're calling it The Breakdown.
The Breakdown. Ayman Mohyeldin. Okay,
we're breaking it down.
That's going to be the hashtag. I'm going to hashtag tweet that tonight. 5 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC. If you missed it, you missed it. And